Peace and calm to you, and welcome. My name is Timothy, and I'm here to share a moment of rest with you. This is your time, a gentle pause at the end of the day, to let go, to soften, and to prepare for deep, nourishing sleep. Tonight, we'll be reading from Birds Every Child Should Know. A gentle and educational work filled with descriptions of nature's wonders. Close your eyes and picture yourself under a wide night sky. The stars sparkle gently above, and a cool, calm breeze brushes against your skin. With every breath in, imagine drawing in the stillness of nature. With every breath out, imagine letting go of tension, as if the breeze is carrying it far away. The ground beneath you is steady, the night air protective and kind. You are safe, supported, and surrounded by peace. When you are ready, simply follow the sound of my voice as we move into tonight's story. The Bluebird. Is there any sign of spring quite so welcome as the glint of the first bluebird, unless it is his softly whistled song? Before the farmer begins to plow the wet earth, often while snow is still on the ground, this hardy little minstrel is making himself very much at home in our orchards and gardens, while waiting for a mate to arrive from the south. And now it is time to have ready on top of the grape arbor, or under the eaves of the barn, or nailed up in the apple tree, or set up on poles, the little one-roomed houses that bluebirds are only too happy to occupy. More enjoyable neighbors it would be hard to find. Sparrows will fight for the boxes, it is true. But if there are plenty to let, and the sparrows are persistently driven off, the bluebirds, which are a little larger, though far less bold quickly take possession. Birds that come earliest in the season and feed on insects before they have time to multiply are of far greater value in the field, orchard, and garden than birds that delay their return until warm weather has brought forth countless swarms of insects far beyond the control of either bird or man. Many birds would be of even greater service than they are if they received just a little encouragement to make their homes nearer ours. They could save many more millions of dollars worth of crops for the farmers than they do if they were properly protected while rearing their ever-hungry families. As 2 or even 3 broods of bluebirds may be raised in a box each spring, and insects are their most approved baby food, you see how much it is to our interest to set up nurseries for them near our homes. But when people are not thoughtful enough to provide them before the 1st of March, the bluebirds hunt for a cavity in a fence rail or a hole in some old tree, preferably in the orchard, shortly after their arrival, and proceed to line it with grass. From 3 to 6 pale blue eggs are laid. At first, the babies are blind, helpless, and almost naked. Then they grow a suit of dark feathers with speckled, thrush-like vests similar to their cousins, the baby robins. And it is not until they are able to fly that the lovely, deep blue shade gradually appears on their grayish upper parts. Then their throat, breast, and sides turn rusty red. While creatures are helpless, a prey for any enemy to pounce upon, nature does not dress them conspicuously, you may be sure. Adult birds that are able to look out for themselves may be very gaily dressed, but their children must wear somber clothes until they grow strong and wise. Young bluebirds are far less wild and noisy than robins, but their very sharp little claws discourage handling. These pointed hooks on the ends of their toes help them to climb out of the tree hollow that is their natural home into the big world that their presence makes so cheerful. As you might expect of creatures so heavenly in color, the disposition of bluebirds is particularly angelic. Gentleness and amiability are expressed in their soft, musical voice. Truly, truly, they sweetly assert when we can scarcely believe that spring is here. And terwee, terwee, they softly call in autumn when they go roaming through the countryside in flocks of azure, or whirl through southern woods to feed on the waxy berries of the mistletoe. The wood thrush, called also song thrush, wood robin, bellbird, much more shy and reserved than the social, democratic robin, is his cousin, the wood thrush, whom perhaps you more frequently hear than see. Not that he is a recluse, like the hermit thrush, who hides his nest and lifts up his heavenly voice in deep, cool forest solitudes, nor is he even so shy as Wilson's thrush, who prefers to live in low, wet, densely overgrown northern woods. The wood thrush, as his name implies, certainly likes the woodland, but very often he chooses to stay close to our country and suburban homes, or within city parks, with a more than half-hearted determination to be friendly. He is also about 2 inches shorter than the robin. Above his feathers are a rich cinnamon brown, brightest on his head and shoulders, and shading into olive brown on his tail. His white throat and breast and sides are heavily marked with heart-shaped marks of very dark brown. He has a white eye ring. Here am I, come his 3 clear, bell-like notes of self-introduction. The quality of his music is delicious, rich, penetrative, pure, and vibrating like notes struck upon a harp. If you don't already know this most neighborly of the thrushes, as he is also the largest and brightest and most heavily spotted of them all, you will presently become acquainted with one of the finest songsters in America. Wait until evening, when he sings at his best. No lee, a-e-o lee, no lee, a-e-o lee lee, peals his song from the trees. Love alone inspires his finest strains. But even in July, when bird music is quite inferior to that of May and June, he is still in good voice. A song so exquisite proves that the thrush comes near to being a bird angel, very high in the scale of development, and far, far beyond such low creatures as ducks and chickens. Pit, 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 you may hear sharply, excitedly jerked out of some bird's throat, and you wonder if a note so disagreeable can really come from the wonderful songster on the branch above your head. By sharply striking two small stones together, you can closely imitate this alarm call. Whom can he be scolding so severely? It is yourself, of course, for without knowing it, you have come nearer to his low nest in the beech tree than he thinks quite safe. While sitting, the mother bird is, however, quite tame. A photographer I know placed his camera within 4 feet of a nest, changed the plates, and clicked the shutter 3 times for as many pictures, without disturbing the gentle sitter who merely winked her eye at each chick. Wood thrushes seem to delight in weaving bits of paper or rags into their deep cradles, which otherwise resemble the robins. A nest in the shrubbery near a bird lover's home in New Jersey had many bits of newspaper attached to its outer walls. But the most conspicuous strip in front advertised in large letters, "A house to be let or sold." The original builders happily took the next lease, and another lot of nervous, fidgety baby tenants came out of 4 light greenish blue eggs. But, as usual, they moved away to the woods after 10 days to join the choir invisible. Wilson's thrush. The veery, as the Wilson's thrush is called in New England, is far more common there than the wood thrush, whose range is more southerly. During its spring and fall migrations only is it at all common about the elms and maples that men have planted. Take a good look at its tawny coat and lightly spotted cream buff breast before it goes away to hide. Like Kipling's cat that walked by himself, the veery prefers the wild, wet woods, and there its ringing, weird, whistling monotone that is so melodious without being a melody seems to come from you can't guess where. The singer keeps hidden in the dense, dark undergrowth. It is as if 2 voices, an alto and a soprano, were singing at the same time. Wee you, wee you. The familiar notes might come from a scythe being sharpened on a wheelstone, or the sound less musical than it is. The bird is too wise to sing very near its well-hidden nest, which is placed either directly on the damp ground or not far above it, and usually near water. Throughout its life, the veery seems to show a distrust of us that, try as we may, few have ever overcome. If you have thought that the thrush-like cinnamon-brown speckled-breasted bird with a long twitching tail like a catbird's and a song as fine as a catbird's best would be mentioned among the robin's relations, you must guess again, for he is the brown thrasher, not a thrush at all. You will find him in the group of lively singers. Chapter 2. Some Neighborly Acrobats. The chickadee. called also black-capped titmouse. Bitterly cold and dreary though the day may be, that little scrap of valor, the chickadee, keeps his spirits high until ours cannot be but cheered by the oft-repeated, clear, tinkling, silvery notes that spell his name. Chickadee-dee, chickadee-dee, he introduces himself. How easy it would be for every child to know the birds if all would sing out their names so clearly. Oh, don't you wish they would? Piped a tiny voice nearby, gay and polite, a cheerful cry. Chick-chickadee, saucy note, out of sound, heart, and merry throat, as if it said, "Good day, good sir. Fine afternoon, old passenger. Happy to meet you in these places where January brings new faces." No bird except the wren is more cheerful than the chickadee, and his cheerfulness, fortunately, is just as catching as measles. None will respond more promptly to your whistle in imitation of his 3 very high, clear call notes, and come nearer and nearer to make quite sure you are only a harmless mimic. He is very inquisitive. Although not a bird may be in sight when you first whistle his call, 9 chances out of 10 there will be a faint echo from some far distant throat before very long. And by repeating the notes at short intervals, you will have probably not one, but several echoes from as many different chickadees, whose curiosity to see you soon gets the better of their appetites and brings them flying by easy stages to the tree above your head. Where there is one chickadee, there are apt to be more in the neighborhood. For these sociable, active, cheerful little black-capped fellows in gray like to hunt for their living in loose, scattered flocks throughout the fall and winter. When they come near enough, notice the pale, rusty wash on the sides of their underparts, which are more truly dirty white than gray. Chickadees are wonderfully tame, except the chirping sparrow, perhaps the tamest birds that we have. Patient people who know how to whistle up these friendly sprites can sometimes draw them close enough to touch, and an elect few who have the special gift of winning a wild bird's confidence can introduce the chickadee to a light upon their hands. Blessed with a thick coat of fat under his soft, fluffy gray feathers, a hardy constitution, and a sunny disposition, what terrors has the winter for him? When the thermometer goes down, his spirits seem to go up the higher. Dangling like a circus acrobat on the cone of some tall pine tree, standing on an outstretched twig, then turning over and hanging with his black-capped head downward from the high trapeze, carefully inspecting the rough bark on the twigs for a fat grub or a nest of insect eggs. He is constantly hunting for food and singing grace between bites. His day, 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 sung softly over and over again, seems to be his equivalent for "Give us this day our daily bread." How delightfully he and his busy friends, who are always within call, punctuate the snow-muffled midwinter silence with their ringing calls of good cheer. The orchards where chickadees, titmice, nuthatches, and kinglets have dined all winter will contain few worm-eaten apples next season. Here is a puzzle for your arithmetic class. If one chickadee eats 444 eggs of the apple tree moth on Monday, 333 of the cankerworm on Tuesday, and 777 miscellaneous grubs, larvae, and insect eggs on Wednesday and Thursday, how long will it take a flock of 22 chickadees to rid an orchard of every unspeakable pest? One very wise and thrifty fruit grower I know attracts to his trees all the winter birds from far and near by keeping on several shelves nailed up in his orchard bits of suet, cheap raisins, raw peanuts chopped fine, cracked hickory nuts, and rinds of pork. The free lunch counters are freely patronized. There is scarcely an hour in the day, no matter how cold, when some hungry, feathered neighbor may not be seen helping himself to the heating, fattening food he needs to keep his blood warm. At the approach of warm weather, chickadees retreat from public gaze to become temporary recluses in damp, deep woods or woodland swamps where insects are most plentiful. For a few months, they give up their friendly, flocking ways and live in pairs. Long journeys they do not undertake from the north when it is time to nest, but southern birds move northward in the spring. Happily, the chickadee may find a woodpecker's vacant hole in some hollow tree. Worse luck if a new excavation must be made in a decayed birch, the favorite nursery. Wool from the sheep pasture, felt from fern fronds, bits of bark, moss, hair, and the fur of the little beasts of field and wood. Anything soft that may be picked up goes to line the hollow cradle in the tree trunk. How the crowded chickadee babies must swelter in their bed of fur and feathers, tucked inside a close, stuffy hole. Is it not strange that such hardy parents should coddle their children so? Tufted titmouse, called also peto bird, crested tomtit, crested titmouse. Don't expect to meet the tufted titmouse if you live very far north of Washington. He is common only in the south and west. This pert and lively cousin of the lovable little chickadee is not quite so friendly and far more noisy. Peto, 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 comes his loud, clear whistle from the woods and clearings where he and his large family are roving restlessly about all through the autumn and winter. A famous musician became insane because he heard one note ringing constantly in his overwrought brain. If you ever hear a troop of titmice whistling peto over and over again for hours at a time, you will pity poor Schumann and fear a similar fate for the birds. But they seem to delight in the two tiresome notes, uttered sometimes in one key, sometimes in another. Another call, day, 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 reminds you of the chickadees, only the tufted titmouse's voice is louder and a little hoarse, as it well might be from such constant use. Few birds that we see about our homes wear a top knot on their heads. The big cardinal has a handsome red one. The larger blue jays is bluish gray. The cedar waxwings is a Quaker drab. But the little titmouse, who is the size of an English sparrow, may be named at once by the gray pointed crest that makes him look so pert and jaunty. When he hangs head downward from the trapeze on the oak tree, this little gray acrobat's peaked cap seems to be falling off, whereas the black skull cap on the smaller chickadee fits close to his head, no matter how much he turns over the bar and dangles. Neither one of these cousins is a carpenter like the woodpecker. The titmouse has a short, stout bill without a chisel on it, which is why it cannot chip out a hole for a nest in a tree trunk or old stump unless the wood is much decayed. You will see why these birds are so pleased to find a deserted woodpecker's hole. Not alone are they saved the trouble of making one, but a deep tunnel in a tree trunk means security for their babies against hawks, crows, jays, and other foes, as well as against wind and rain. When you find a flock of either chickadees or titmice, you may be sure it is made up chiefly, if not entirely, of the birds of one or two broods of the same parents. Their families are usually large, and the members devoted to one another. Titmice nest in April, so that you cannot tell the brothers and sisters from the father and mother when the troop of acrobats leave the woods in early autumn and whistle lustily about your home. White-breasted nuthatch, called also tree mouse, devil downhead. When it comes to acrobatic performances in the trees, neither the chickadees nor the titmouse can rival their relatives, the little bluish-gray nuthatches. Indeed, any circus might be glad to secure their expert services. Hanging fearlessly from the topmost branches of the tallest pine, running along the underside of horizontal limbs as comfortably as along the top of them, or descending the trunk head foremost, these wonderful little gymnasts keep their nerves as cool as the thermometer in January. From the way they travel over any part of the tree they wish, from the top and tip to the bottom of it. No wonder they are sometimes called tree mice. Only the fly that walks across the ceiling, however, can compete with them in clinging to the underside of boughs. Why don't they fall off? If you ever have a chance, examine their claws. These, you will see, are very much curved and have sharp little hooks that catch in any crack or rough place in the bark and easily support the bird's weight. As a general rule, the chickadee keeps to the end of the twigs and the smaller branches. The tufted titmouse rids the larger boughs of insects, eggs, and worms hidden in the scaly bark. But the nuthatches can climb to more inaccessible places. With the help of the hooks on their toes, it does not matter to them whether they run upward, downward, or sideways, and they can stretch their bodies away from their feet at some very queer angles. Their long bills penetrate into deep holes in the thick bark of the tree trunks and older limbs, and bring forth from their hiding places insects that would escape almost every other bird except the brown creeper and the woodpecker. Of course, when you see any feathered acrobat performing in the trees, you know he is working hard to pick up a dinner and not exercising merely for fun. The most familiar nuthatch in the eastern United States is the one with the white breast. But in the northern states and Canada, there is another common winter neighbor, a smaller, compactly feathered, bluish-gray gymnast with a pale, rusty breast, a conspicuous black line running apparently through his eye from the base of his bill to the nape of his neck, and heavy white eyebrows. This is the hearty little red-breasted nuthatch. His voice is pitched rather high, and his drawling notes seem to come from a lazy bird instead of one of the most vigorous and spry little creatures in the wood. The nasal ank ank of his white-breasted cousin is uttered too, without expression, as if the bird were compelled to make a sound once in a while against his will. Both of these cousins have similar habits. Both are a trifle smaller than the English sparrow. In summer, they merely hide away in the woods to nest, for they are not migrants. It is only when nesting duties are over in the autumn that they become neighborly. Who gave them their queer name? A hatchet would be a rather clumsy tool for us to use in opening a nut. But these birds have a convenient, ever-ready one in their long, stout, sharply pointed bills, with which they hack apart the small, thin-shelled nuts, like beech nuts and hazelnuts, chinkapins and chestnuts, kernels of corn and sunflower seeds. These they wedge into cracks in the bark, just big enough to hold them. During the summer and early autumn, when insects are plentiful, the nuthatches eat little else, and then they thriftily store away the other items on their bill of fare, squirrel fashion, so that when frost kills the insects, they may vary their diet of insect eggs and grubs with nuts and the larger grain. Flying to spot where a nut has been securely wedged, perhaps weeks before, the bird scores and hacks and pecks it open with his sharp little hatchet, whose hard blows may be heard far away. Although this tool is a great help to the nuthatches in making their nests, they appear to be quite as ready to accept a deserted woodpecker's hole as the chickadee with a smaller bill. A natural cavity will answer, or, if they must, they will make one in some forest tree. The red-breasted nuthatches have a curious habit of smearing the entrance to the hole with fir balsam or pitch. Why do you suppose they do it? Perhaps they think this will discourage egg suckers like snakes, mice, or squirrels. But in effect, the sticky gum often pulls the feathers from their own breasts as they go in and out, attending to the wants of their family. Ruby-crowned kinglet. Count that a red-letter day on your calendar when first you see either this tiny, dainty sprite or his next of kin, the golden-crowned kinglet, fluttering, twinkling about the evergreens. In Republican America, we don't often have the chance to meet two crowned heads. Energetic as wrens, restless as warblers, and as perpetually looking for insect food, the kinglets flit with a sudden, jerking motion from twig to twig among the trees and bushes, now on the lawn, now in the orchard, and presently in the hedgerow down the lane. They have a pretty trick of lifting and flitting their wings every little while. The bluebird and pine grosbeak have it too, but their much larger, trembling wings seem far less nervous. Happily, the kinglets are not at all shy. No bird is that is hatched out so far north that it never sees a human being until it travels southward to spend the winter. Alas, it is the birds that know us too well that are often the most afraid. When the leaves are turning crimson and russet and gold in the autumn, keep a sharp lookout for the plump little grayish olive-green birds that are even smaller than wrens and not very much larger than hummingbirds. Although members of quite a different family, the kinglets are exclusive. They condescend to join the nuthatches and chickadees in the orchard to help clean the farmer's fruit trees or pick up a morsel at the free lunch counter in zero weather. Love or war is necessary to make the king show us his crown, but vanity or anger is sufficient excuse for lifting the dark feathers that nearly conceal the beauty spot on the top of his head when the midget's mind is at ease. If you approach very near, he will allow you to almost touch him. You may see the little patch of brilliant red feathers, it is true, but you will probably get an unexpected, chattering scolding from the little king as he flies away. In the spring, his love song is as surprisingly strong in proportion to his size as the wren's. It seems impossible for such a volume of mellow, flute-like melody to pour from a throat so tiny. Before we have a chance to hear it again, the singer is off with his tiny queen to nest in some spruce tree beyond the Canadian border.